Welcome to Gracefully Greying. I am your host, Attorney Henry Gornbein. Today on Gracefully Greying, I am very pleased to welcome as our guest Ira Goldberg as he leads us in a very important discussion regarding the creative mind at age 55 and older. Ira, welcome to Gracefully Greying.
Hi, Henry. It's an honor to be with you today.
It's a pleasure having you. First of all, why don't you tell our viewers a little bit about who you are and your background?
Sure. Well, I'm happy to say that I am on the doorstep to my 60th birthday. Detroit, for the most part, has always been home. Professionally, I was a high school social studies teacher for 26 years. Outside of teaching, like everyone else, I had personal interests, but there was a new door that opened in my life when I lost a bit of weight, probably about 15 years ago. Up to that point, I had lived really a sedentary lifestyle. So I challenged myself to do something that was beyond what I'd ever given myself credit for or the ability to do, and that was to run a half marathon. And through that, I continued to embrace the idea of challenging myself, and that turned into running a full marathon and then eventually completing 2 full-length Ironman races, which I'm not sure if you know what that is, but it's a very long day.
Yes, I do know what they are. I mean, you have to run a certain distance, you have to swim a certain distance, and you also have to ride a bicycle a certain distance.
Yeah, you swim 2.4 miles, and then you bike 112 miles, and then you run a full marathon after that, 26.2 miles, and you do that without dropping dead. So I'm happy to say that I've done that a few times. And the idea of that personal challenge was really, or is very relevant to our discussion today. Our discussion, of course, focuses on the idea of creative and being creative. And a lot of people may be thinking, well, I've never been creative in my life. Well, I had never been athletic in my life, but opening the door to having some type of physical activity in my life and doing something different was really a key to getting to where I wanted to go. And hopefully somebody challenging themselves to open the door and inviting the idea that they can be creative as well is something that'll have some impact on their life too.
I'm impressed. I mean, Ironman, that's quite an accomplishment. I have to give you kudos to you. That's something I've never tried. I guess I have no desire to try it. But Ira, tell us, how do you transition from a work mind to a creative mind?
Sure. And a very important topic. Before we jump into that, we might want to explore, well, what happens to the mind when we get to the work finish line? And there are numerous studies that show that there's changes in brain health, including the risk of cognitive decline and depression when individual leaves the workforce. There's a loss of intellectual challenge that work gives an individual. And almost just as important is the social network that the workplace is providing. So it's really important to have a plan and to kind of directly address the question. Having that plan, it's really important, hopefully before somebody's in the process of leaving the workforce, that addresses, well, what am I going to do next? But as they say, the best time to do a plan might be, 2 years prior. The next best time is now. So if somebody's already at that phase in their life where they've left the workforce, well, it's not too late. Start addressing that plan right now.
It's interesting. I mean, it's like, I know a lot of people who've retired and they're bored. Yeah. And I guess you have to have a passion. So I guess, do you find that it's hard to turn the page on one chapter of your life and go to the next?
Oh, absolutely. human nature is we're resistant to change. We like finding what we're doing. We like our routine. Um, as humans, we don't like being challenged for change. So what I would suggest is view this chapter in your life as something completely different. View it as an opportunity to challenge yourself to do something that you've never done. And what helped me with that when I was in the process of developing Plan B, so to speak, I refused to think of myself as I'm retiring. Instead, I have chosen to look at this chapter in life as I have repurposed my life. I'm not I'm not looking at it as every day I'm sitting on a couch and drinking a cup of coffee, which although I probably do that, but there's a bigger focus to what I'm doing. So I think that it's all up here. It's the mental part. And to go back to the Ironman thing for a second, the distances that you deal with on that day, they're very daunting. But the biggest challenge in terms of the distance that you deal with is the 6 inches in between your ears. So when somebody gets into this phase in life, having the right mindset can really um, help somebody embrace what's about to come.
Except going back to Ironman, it's very physical too. I mean, I guess mentally it's a challenge to just keep going and not drop out of exhaustion, but it's also a physical challenge that you've got to be fit. And maybe it's important to say that with your mind, you want to keep it fit. So you don't want to have your mind atrophy, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
So why don't we go to why does creativity as we are aging help fight off mental atrophy?
Well, a lot of what creativity does is it's supplementing what an individual was experiencing when they were at work. And if it's done right, that would even include things like a social network. It's giving somebody a sense of purpose, um, and doing those things can really help prevent this cognitive decline. Um, and especially if it's something that somebody hasn't done in the past. So they're going down a completely new path in life where they really have to learn, and submerge themselves in a full new type of experience where they haven't done this before. What do I do? The number of doors that you have to open to kind of figure things out, which personally I find that a lot of fun. So it's something that stimulates the brain to challenge somebody to continue exploring new things, which to a certain extent is exactly what you do at work every day.
Ira, it sounds like by doing these new things, you're forcing part of your brain to rewire, for lack of a better word. I mean, it's like doing new things, doing different things, trying not to just get into some type of mundane pattern. So give us examples as how we do this. What do we do?
Sure. Well, so we'll talk about the creative path, but I love what you said about this rewiring the brain kind of idea, and my gosh, you're absolutely right. For somebody at my age or my point in life, to do things like learn a new language, that's really challenging. But you're really challenging your mind and your brain to keep up with these new ideas that you're exposed to. So in a creative sense, there's a number of different ways that you can do this. One of the most exciting ways, though, is for me anyway, is coupling technology and these new challenges of things that I haven't done. So one thing somebody can do is create a podcast, exactly what we're doing right now. It's very accessible. These are things that it's low barriers to entry in terms of technology. Somebody could engage in creating a blog, another very low barrier to entry kind of format. Somebody could engage in painting. My wife actually painted that picture that's right over my head right there.
Kind of block. It looks pretty colors, and yeah.
Yeah, and she is not a painter, so that's a good example of somebody taking up something. She doesn't do this. There was a fun night out with friends, but the point is that she didn't have any background, and yet she created something very beautiful. And then, of course, what I fell into is photography, and I would highly encourage somebody who has never been a photographer before or thought that they have an interest in that area, pick up a camera. It's something, again, very low barriers to entry. It can be as expensive or as inexpensive as somebody wants. We know that because of this little device right here, everybody has a camera in their pocket. And the technology of the day means that these actually produce pretty decent pictures. So, so you can put the worst camera in the world in the hands of a really good photographer, and they'll find a way to come up with a composition that's beautiful, lighting that's beautiful. So it doesn't matter, good camera, bad camera. It's something that it's up to the individual to really create that art.
Well, the key is your eye. I mean, what you're focusing on, how you're composing the scene, the background, and everything. So, I mean, photography has always fascinated me. I had many cameras throughout my lifetime, so I understand exactly what you're talking on. But Ira, tell us how you developed this as much more than a hobby, where you become a professional photographer.
Yeah. So I'd always had an interest in photography going back to when I was a kid. My parents, for my bar mitzvah, bought me my first camera. And
It's funny, my first camera was a gift from my uncle of a camera for my bar mitzvah.
oh, no kidding.
Yes.
Do you remember what the camera was?
I think it might have been a Kodak Brownie
Oh,
or
wow.
like that. I mean, I'm older than you, so it goes way, way back.
Well, the funny thing over time, I don't know, I don't have a clue what happened to that camera. And uh, thanks to things like eBay, I was able to find the same exact model of that camera, and I acquired it and brought that camera back into my collection. And it was amazing the memories that holding that camera in my hand brought back. It was really just like being a kid and my parents giving it to me. And I can remember holding that camera and all of a sudden images that I took years ago, some of the first images that I was really proud of just popped back in my mind. So in any case, but unlike or not unlike many people, life gets in the way. And for probably 35 or so years, I had put down the camera and it was just kind of an afterthought. So when I started getting to the point that my career was winding down in teaching, and it was a wonderful career, but quite frankly, when COVID came about, trying to teach through Zoom and a variety of other things really encouraged me to look more seriously at my own plan B. What am I going to do beyond this? What do I want to do with the rest of my life? And I decided that I would venture down that path again. In the process, I had a knee replacement, and when you do that, you wind up on the couch for a lot of time. and watching a YouTube video that introduced me to more technical aspects of photography, in particular, fashion photography and lighting subjects with artificial light. And I just thought that was the neatest thing. And I bought another camera, and I bought studio lights, and I started, quite frankly, goofing around with it. But the amazing thing is when I saw those images come out of the camera, the color, how I could manipulate light using this artificial light, it was fantastic. And I transitioned that to starting to shoot subjects in portraits. And going through the process, when you don't know what you're doing, you ask friends, people off the street, anyone who is willing to sit in front of your camera and be your test subject. And that's exactly what I did. And it was a wonderful process. And I'm so grateful to everyone who was so patient with me as I would create these images. But that turned into opening new doors and to start shooting professionally for law firms, for companies, for doctors' offices, for a variety of different things. And one of the things that I'm proudest of is I did a lot of work with senior citizens. And it's very important to me to create an image of somebody where they can be proud of who they are. And there's beauty within every single person. I don't care who you are. There's beauty in every single person. My job as a photographer is to bring that out. So I had worked with a number of senior citizens, and ultimately a lot of that work wound up in a book that I'm very proud of. When I say a book, it wasn't a book that I published. It was a book for somebody else, for their purposes. In any case, those types of things, when you start doing it and you see the work that you're capable of, it gives you a lot of encouragement and to continue to get better. So I'm committed to the idea of continual excellence and continuing to develop images that I can be proud of, along with the subject that sits in front of my camera.
Ira, is it ever too old to be creative?
Henry, it is never too old. I have worked with subjects who are in their 90s, and I have encouraged them to pick up a camera themselves. I have worked with people who are in the same process, that they're trying to figure things out, and encouraging them. I have family members that have gone down their own creative paths. My mother-in-law is one person in particular who is such an inspiration, because she worked until she was, if I'm not mistaken, 85. I think it was 85. I'm sorry, I think 82 or 83, whatever it was. But she is now engaged in her own process of continual creativity. She loves to dance. She does all sorts of dance classes. So she's found her own path to creativity at a later point in life. So it doesn't matter. You don't have to be in this process where you're trying to figure out what to do in the next chapter in life. If somebody's already there, that's great. Embrace where you are at that point in life. But find something that interests you. Find something that you've never done before. Find something that you think is beyond your grasp, and you'd be surprised. So even, let's go back to painting, for example. If I were to paint, my first painting would be horrible. Well, when I say horrible, it would be incomprehensible. I don't know the first thing about painting. But it is actually on my bucket list of things to try. And your first painting, you just call it, what is it, Impressionism? It's just a bunch of stuff. Jackson Pollock. So the point is that never be afraid to try something. And I think that you'd be surprised. But if I start with that first painting or that first photograph or that first blog, whatever it is, yeah, it might be something that is not technically perfect. That's okay. Because the next time it'll be a little bit better. The time after that, it continues to improve. And then all of a sudden, that sense of self-worth, that sense of pride, you can look at something, no, I created that.
You got to start somewhere. I
Gotta
mean,
start somewhere.
and there's nothing wrong with trying. It's like the key is opening your mind up to new ideas, to doing things. And what are some other ways to express creativity from your perspective?
Well, I think that I love the idea of trying something in a completely different direction of what you've done before. So, for example, even let's go back to what we had talked about learning a different language. You don't have to have the objective of I'm going to be fluent in a certain language. If you can just look at something as I want to learn a few phrases, I want to learn a few words. We're living in a society today where you don't have to look real far to find people that are speaking a different language.
True.
So if it's something that you can engage in somebody and just learn, maybe I'm going to learn how to say hello in a different language, and finding somebody to engage with, and then challenging your mind to go beyond that. Can I learn a different phrase? You might find that, wow, this is something that is so fascinating. I want to go beyond this and I want to try to be conversational. Or at the end of the day, you might go, okay, it was great that I learned a few things to say. Next, let's go on to something different.
Ira, what happens after you become creative?
Well, there's a number of different um, positive outcomes, um, making connections to the things that you experienced in work life. So, for example, all of those the challenges, the mental challenges that you experience in a day-to-day life, in at your job place or in work, you experience those types of things in your creative pursuits. However, what I would suggest is to go a step beyond that. So, for example, engaging in clubs where it exposes you to people that have similar interests. I think that's really important. If you're going down the path of painting or photography, it gives you an opportunity to actually submit your work to things like exhibits. I recently submitted some of my work um, to an exhibit, and it was accepted, which I was really honored that that was the case. And I thought at first it was a neat thing to hear that it was accepted, but to actually go to the gallery and see your work on the wall with a bunch of other people's work, it really is something that gives you an immense amount of pride. And I think that whether it's um, whether it's the idea of painting, a photograph, whatever the case might be, ceramics, to see your work and have it appreciated by others is something that's really important. Well, let me take a step though, or a second to kind of expand upon that.
Sure.
One thing that's really important though is we live in a world where to have your share your work through social media is is readily accessible, and it's a good way. However, a lot of people fall into the trap of, well, why didn't my picture get any likes, or why didn't somebody comment on it, or whatever the case might be. I operate under the principle of the most important person that I'm trying to satisfy is me. So, one of the pictures that I love the most is a picture that I took in New York of somebody's shoes. And it's a very nondescript picture, but But I'm fascinated with that picture, whether other people like it or not. I don't care. The only person that I had to satisfy is me. And I think that when you lose sight of that and think, well, why aren't people appreciating my work? Then you've kind of defeated yourself. You're doing this to satisfy yourself. You're doing it for all the positive implications it can have on your mental health. So be proud of your work, whatever it might be.
What are some of your goals as a photographer, Ira?
Well, I want to work with people who, especially in older population, I do a number of portraits of people, high school graduates, senior photos, things of that nature. But I really want to focus on creating archival portraits of older individuals who are creating something where they are proud of what they see in that image, and they know that that image is going to be in family members' homes and on their walls for generations to come. So having an opportunity to work with somebody, to collaborate with them, to get to know them, and through that process to bring all of that out to show somebody's soul in an image is really important to me.
Ira, your passion really shows through and your creativity. I've seen some of your photos and they're really amazing. We have just a few moments left before we sign off. Are there any final words of wisdom you would like to share with our viewers?
Well, never be afraid to go out and try it. Never be afraid to go down a path and to challenge yourself to do something that you never thought that you could do. It doesn't matter what it is that you're trying. It doesn't matter whether the outcome is good or bad. Focus on the process, not the end result. And if you do that, I think that you'll find you're going to engage in something that fascinates you, that focuses on some new aspect of something, that all of a sudden there's this new energy in your life, and it's really exciting.
Ira, those are great words of wisdom. I want to thank you so much for being our guest on Gracefully Greying. I want to thank you, our viewers, and of course, our sponsors for making Gracefully Greying, and of course, Bloomfield Cable. Thank you so much.